So, Carl, thank you for joining me at Me Time with. And this time it's Me Time with Carl Honore, and we're speaking about the praise of slow or slowness. There's a bit of a debate on how the book is called. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's fun to be here.
Thank you for taking the time. There was some technical mishaps on my end, so my phone did not want to turn on video. So instead of doing a Substack live, we're doing a Substack recorded interview with Carl in the praise of slow, all about slowness and how that can be a superpower. It's not always about speeding up, but it's also about finding the right tempo. I think that's the conclusion, right, Carl? So I have some questions for you and everything. But in the meantime, when I pull them out, how have you been slowing down these days? What slow rituals do you have in your everyday life?
I've got a few rituals. The first is that every evening before going to sleep, I read a novel on a book, no screens, for 40 minutes or an hour. That's my kind of slow time when I switch off completely and go completely analog. So that's my daily ritual at the end of the day. Throughout the day, there are moments when I get away from my desk and do a bit of meditation or just breathing exercises, go somewhere quiet and switch off. I also make sure wherever possible every day to spend some time in nature. Now, I've just spent the weekend in the Cotswolds in England, which is a gloriously bucolic setting, and walking in forests and up hills and so on. But you can't do that every day. But I do have a couple of parks nearby, so I make sure that I get out onto the grass and feel Mother Nature between my toes, and the wind in my hair at least once a day to be outside. And then I guess another ritual I do, I'm a very big cook. I love food. I love preparing food. And I always take time to think about what I'm going to make, choose simple, good ingredients and make it from scratch. Never eat any processed food ever. Everything I make is homemade. And there's a kind of meditative yoga aspect to cooking, I find. It's when in some ways, I'm most relaxed. It's when I'm preparing food for the people I love.
I love that. I love that also because my household is half Italian, half Romanian. So we grew up with home cooked meals. And I also noticed that in my experience that when I was in the most stressful times of our lives, of my life, I would eat processed food, fast food, crap. And then when I was on the recovery side of things and slowing down, I would, take time in preparing, planning, and taking joy in the little things. And recently I actually made marmalade for the first time in my life.
Yeah, nice.
So we picked up berries from the garden and we brought them upstairs. We watched a video on YouTube of how to make marmalade together. We took notes and then we went to the supermarket, got the rest of the ingredients, and we made marmalade. And I've never done it before. It's super easy. But the actual process of it my daughter is 4, with a small kid that doesn't know how marmalade is made. And, going through that, like you buy it in 5 minutes, you walk to the shop, you buy marmalade, you have marmalade, you eat it. But the beauty of actually making it was so beautiful and created a memory between me and my daughter. And that's priceless. So slowing down is actually magic, I would say. And the everyday magic that we kind of choose to ignore. And that's why I invited Carl today, because life is going at a pace that is insane right now. If we think of AI and all that it's kind of stirring up, it's getting crazy out there in terms of the pace of the information, of how jobs develop, change, how companies move. It's crazy. So I have a question about the book. You've written it 20 years ago, more or less. And in this time that has passed, in this 20 years, a lot has happened. There was the global slowdown with the pandemic, but then there's also this crazy speed up with AI. So if you were to write the book today, what do you think you'd do differently or say or add in the book?
Funny thing about this book is that I feel it's kind of timeless. I reread it recently because every few years I write a new foreword or a preface to bring it up to date a little bit at the beginning. And so I have to go back and read the book. And the last time I read it was probably 2 years ago. And I remember thinking, there's actually nothing that I would change in this book. Obviously, in some ways, the world has changed. I mean, social media has exploded since I first wrote the book. We've had the global pandemic, as you say, and now we have AI. But those are just circumstances. The basic principle of the book holds true and holds solid, that you don't try and do things as fast as possible. You try and do them as well as possible. It's such a simple idea, right? But it's a revolutionary one that can just improve every single thing you do. So I would probably write quite a similar book today, but I would obviously have different examples and the context would be different. So I'd be talking about AI and all of the things we learned as well about slowness during the pandemic. Because what was the pandemic if not a global workshop in slowness? You know, the world had to stop. And of course, the pandemic was a nightmare in many ways for all of us. But I think for a lot of people, it also was a bit of an eye-opener. It was the first time that they ever slowed down. There was no more FOMO. The world stopped. And it was a revelation to people. It was a relief to have more time for food, for reading bedtime stories to your children, for rest, for contemplation, for making jam and marmalade. You know, all these things that people just thought, I've got no time for this. I live in 2020, whatever. Now they thought, actually, this is rather lovely. There's a beauty and a magic to these rituals and these acts that we do together and that we do alone. And so I think a lot of people came out of the pandemic thinking, yes, I can see the wisdom and the case for slowness. That doesn't mean that everybody slowed down. In many ways, the world just pinged back to what it was before. But I do think that the memory of that slow experience of the pandemic is still with us, and it's helping to shape the conversation around speed and pace now that we reached the next stage, which is AI, which threatens to accelerate everything, right? And of course, people say, well, you know, maybe slowness is over. Actually, I think the opposite is true. It's precisely when things get very quick and fast that we need slowness, right? Because we cannot, human beings, we're not algorithms and we're not machines. We're not built to be always on. We have to slow down, rest, recharge, and relax. And we have a choice now. We can try and compete with the machines on the things machines do very fast, which I don't see as a very viable option because we've already lost that battle. They're too fast for us now. What we need to do as human beings is double down on the slow stuff, the things that take time and attention, things like empathy, creativity, community, listening, teamwork, all those things that require us to slow down and connect with ourselves and other people in nature. We have to slow down to do them. That's where the future lies for human beings. That's where we need to go. And that's what slowness will get us if we allow it.
I totally agree. I think racing against the machines is just a foolish act. I wrote an article not long ago about the fact, I forget who it was, maybe Tim Cook, but I'm not sure. Someone said that basically we just passed the place in time where we could manage to keep up with the machines. We've just surpassed that point. So there's no way in heck to do it. And we need to think about it. We need to think about what's inherently human and double down on that, because that's the way forward to guarantee that you have a future in your career and to guarantee that you have a life that's fulfilling and healthy. Because I found this article on LinkedIn that was from Gartner, which is this market research company looking at a lot of different fields and making predictions. And their prediction for marketing was that there will be such an amount of burnout by 2028 because of AI and all of the technological advancements and people trying to kind of be more productive because that's what the companies want, that people will be burnt out in mass, so much so that marketing will turn back into print. Okay, this is a prediction. We don't know if this is going to
Uh-huh.
happen, but I do feel there's something of a truth in all of that. And the reason for that is that I've experienced it recently. I was heavily using AI for a consulting project where I had to deliver a lot of documents very, very fast. So I was getting first drafts from ChatGPT. And because I was doing the work at such a huge pace, like something that I would have done in 3 months' time, I was doing in 2 weeks. My brain could not keep up. I was exhausted by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And if that's going to be the standard for your day-to-day work at work, if you push yourself to do that kind of work in a fraction of the time, your brain cannot keep up with it. And if you don't give yourself the slow time after this type of efforts, things start breaking down. And for me, my health broke down. I fell twice and got 2 sprains in the matter of a week because I kept on pushing because I wanted to finish this project and be able to enjoy vacation and slow down. But I didn't slow down in time. And then, my body told me to slow down in no uncertain ways. Anyways, this is not a conversation about me and what's happening in my life. I have actual questions about the book and about slowing down. And I asked you the one about how would you write the book today? But the other one is about your other book that you wrote, which is Slower 50 Ways to Thrive in a Faster World. Here we are, Faster World, by maybe 100x. So could you give me, like, I know we mentioned it in kind of your routine, some ways to slow down, but maybe something that is a bit counterintuitive, or something that, I mean, everyone speaks about meditation in terms of slowing down and taking a walk. Is there anything else that we can do to slow down that you can recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that book has 50 tips in it, so there must be some, obviously could be some other things to recommend. I mean, I mentioned nature, I just mentioned it in passing, but I do think that's a really important one, is that we know that whether you call it forest bathing or ecotherapy or green time or whatever, just being in nature slows us down. It reduces stress and sharpens focus and just brings us back into ourselves and connects us with more natural rhythms. So I think that's a really good starting point, because it's free for everybody just to spend even just a few minutes in a green space every day. It could be your garden out back, it could be your park, whatever it is. Just try and get out into nature at some point, and let nature work its magic on you, right? I think that's a good starting point for everyone. I think it helps also to, this is kind of picking up on what you're talking about, making jam or marmalade, you're calling it, earlier, is the actual doing something with your hands, because so much now is going on in our brains. It's from our neck up, and that's just getting faster and faster and faster. And like you described your own experience of just getting your brain getting overwhelmed. And one way to slow all that down, slow down your thoughts, slow down your blood pressure, to slow down everything, is to work with your hands. So try and do something that involves, whether it's making marmalade or knitting or sketching, that's something that I do as well. Not every day, but just like, I'm a terrible drawer. I would never show anyone my drawings. Oh, yours, if that's your drawing, that's already better than mine.
No, it's a little book where you can, it's like
coloring in, right?
Yeah, I'm just coloring it. This is dry watercolor, so you just add water and you can paint. And I take it with me to cafes, and I just have a little non-digital date with myself and sip my coffee and I watercolor. So that's kind of my manual thing that I do.
That's a very good one, because there's just something about that focus and that physical, tactile experience of the world and the concentration that is just incredibly soothing and slows you down, I find. And it also creates, you talked about memories with your daughter, that's something, when you slow down, you forge deeper, lasting memories. I mean, Milan Kundera talked about the intimate bond between slowness and remembering, because when you're moving too fast through life, everything becomes a blur and nothing sticks. You can't remember anything. You get to the end of the day, you look back, you think, what did I do today? What did I have for lunch? You watched a Netflix series yesterday, you think, how did it end? It's like things are just moving so fast that nothing is sticking with us. So I think as soon as you start slowing things down, and one good way to do that is with physical activities, like whatever, like you're drawing or coloring or whatever, that stuff, you start to enjoy the moment more, but you remember the moment more richly and more deeply, which is another huge benefit.
I totally agree. And just to kind of give you my own personal example of slowing down, I'm on the hunt for board games that I can play with a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
They need to be simple enough and entertaining enough to be able to spend a moment or 3 hours fighting fighting over how to play a game.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful. I mean, I'm joking about fighting, but my daughter is very opinionated about how to play games, so we change things quite a lot. So yeah, I'm trying to find a simple enough game that she cannot make up her own rules. I don't think it exists. I'm trying.
Well, board games are a very good example. My favorite one is puzzles. You know, doing a big puzzle with 500 or 1,000 pieces, and just set it up somewhere in your home, and just watch it turn into an oasis of zen, because everybody will want to sit down alone or together and just look for pieces, put them together. You can't speed up puzzles. I mean, I know there are competitions for speed puzzling, but that's a bit boring, and nobody ends up doing that, right? People sink into the moment when they're puzzling. And I find that I've had some of the best conversations with my own children when we've been hunched over a puzzle. We may sit there for 10 minutes in silence looking for the right piece, and then suddenly one of them will say, something happened at school today that really bothered me. And it's that kind of that slowing down and being together without expectations, without hurry, without distraction. Your child knows you're there. You're actually there fully. That's when they begin to open up, and that's when you have those deeper conversations. And that will work with a partner as well, like your husband or your wife or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Like, something about the magic, that slowness of the puzzle it's a kind of alchemy.
I can not agree more. I've only done one very big puzzle. It was when it was the lockdown, and I was also super pregnant, so I had nothing else to do with my time than puzzle, and it was beautiful, but it was such a difficult puzzle. I still remember that we didn't fully finish. We still had a bit, maybe the baby came or something, and we still weren't done. But it was lovely that once in a while, when we would be bored and wanted to do something but not reach for a device, we would just sit there and tackle one pile of the things, and we would discuss strategies of how to do it better and things like that. But there's no way to speed it up. You can make it more efficient, but not speed it up.
Yeah.
And this takes me to, I want to say, part of the book that really touched me was how it ended. Because you take the book through kind of all chapters of life and existence and how slowness can benefit us. But the end of the book is not about slowness. It's about what we should learn from your book, which is that everything has its own right time, and you call it tempo giusto. And I also, Carl's publication here on Substack is called Tempo. And it's also a bit about slow living and a lot of different topics. You've written other books on slightly different topics. So I think it's a amalgamy of all that and who Carl is. So please subscribe to Carl and get to see what he shares here with all of us. But yeah, what do you, can you tell us a bit about Tempo Giusto?
Yeah, I mean, I think people hear slow movement or slow, and because we're so anti slowness, we panic, and I think people assume that it means that everything must be done very slowly, and which is absurd, right? I'm not an extremist of slowness. I love speed, right? Faster is often better. We all know that, but not always. And that really is the key to unlocking this slow revolution. It's about doing things at the right speed, or what musicians call, and I like to call, the tempo giusto, right? The correct tempo for each piece of music. So sometimes a bit of music will need to be very slow and and then other times it's going to speed up and andante, and so different tempos you play with. And that kind of gets at what this slow revolution is about. Sometimes you're slow, sometimes you're picking the right pace for the moment. And I think actually if you go deeper with slow, it's actually a mindset. It's quality over quantity. It's being present and in the moment. It's doing one thing at a time, if you remember those days, right? Before the tyranny of multitasking kicked in. Ultimately, slow really is doing everything not as fast as possible, but as well as possible, which is a very, in fact, immensely simple idea, but such a powerful one. Because once you arrive at each moment thinking, how can I get the most out of this moment by giving it the time and attention it deserves, by living this moment at the tempo giusto, at the right tempo, everything gets better, right? From sex to parenting to work to sports to travel to cooking to medicine, everything. You arrive with that slow lens and you're going to do the thing better and enjoy it more.
You've hit the right word for my next question. So I'm sorry to rush into the next one. I think it's so beautiful how you describe tempo giusto. That is basically being more intentional about the speed in which we live our lives, and really considering, should I rush through bedtime stories or should I savor the best part of the day, and things like that. But you mentioned vacations. And I don't know if you agree or have something similar, but I feel like every person or even couple has a style of travel. So when we're thinking of traveling with friends, we need to kind of think, are they the type of traveler that are kind of our style? Because our style is slow traveling, where we go to restaurants and enjoy the local food, and we go have a coffee in the piazza, or in the square or something. We're not like about rushing to all of the museums to make sure we see every single thing on the guide list or things like that. We want to just kind of live the city or the area we're in. And other people are more about efficiency and getting to see everything and making the most out of their buck in terms of travel. And I would love to hear some of the tips you recommend in terms of traveling and the tempo giusto for traveling to create those memories and remember it.
Yeah, well, I definitely think every person and couple, everybody has their own style of travel, definitely. But I do think a lot of people are traveling too fast, even for them nowadays, which is why they come back and they don't really remember and they don't really experience fully what they went through on travels, and they come home more tired from the vacation than when they left, right? Which is a sign that you're traveling too fast. My most recent book actually is a children's book called It's the Journey, Not the Destination, which is about slow travel. And it's for kids, but it's also for parents, right? It's getting people to rethink how you move through the world, because when you move through the world with that slow spirit, everything lights up. When you're going through fast, the world becomes kind of black and white and a bit monotone. When you slow down and you give each moment the time and attention it deserves, you stop and stare. You listen, you turn on all five senses and connect fully with yourself and the world around you and the experiences and the people you're meeting. You go from black and white to Technicolor and from monotone to Dolby surround sound. Everything just, becomes a lit up Christmas tree. So I think bringing a slow spirit to vacation is the best way to vacation. What are some ways you can do that? Well, number one is a lighter schedule, right? I mean, people turn up now with a thing and they've got 10 things to do in the day. It looks like a work schedule. Make sure you're leaving lots of time in your schedule where there's nothing scheduled. You schedule unscheduled time, and that allows you to arrive in the moment, serendipity, go with whatever happens in that second. You're open to new experiences. You're not on a schedule rushing from one thing to the next. So make sure you have a very light schedule. I think it makes sense also to use your phone as little as possible, because what phones do is they distract us. We're already thinking about what the photograph is going to look like when we get home or on social media. You're not in the moment anymore. Now, I take photos on holiday. I think you need your phone for maps and things. Of course you do, but we're as little as possible. Keep your phone out of the equation. Turn off notifications so you're not getting pinged and beeped and distracted. Those are some things there. And then I think sometimes it pays just to go with the flow, right? If you happen to see a little street that looks beautiful, walk down it. If you walk past a cafe where people appear to be enjoying a really nice cup of coffee, sit down and have a cup of coffee too, right? Just go with what comes up in the moment rather than feeling you've got to pick a box or do what you've read about on TripAdvisor in advance. The memories that will become Proustian, that will become forged in your mind forever, are those that are unique to you, right? Too much of travel now is standardized because we do so much research in advance. We're all reading the same top 10 things to do lists. People are queuing up outside tourist sites to take photos because everybody's taking the same photo, right? That's just shopping mall tourism, right? That's not genuine travel. So wherever you can, get away from other people, make your own path, create your own journey as you go. So those are some things to think about.
I love it. No phones, or at least no internet on your phone, because you can still
Minimum phone, yeah.
the internet. Get a bit lost, and don't overschedule your vacation, because then it's not a vacation, it's a to-do list.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing. You use the word lost there. I think that's a really good thing as well that I have to talk about is go out into a town or something without a map, like just go and get a little lost. It's okay. It's 2025. You'll be fine. Right? And you're going to discover things that you would never have discovered otherwise. And the fact that you discovered them yourself is going to make them even more thrilling and colorful and exciting and memorable. So just, meet the moment rather than program the moment in advance.
Yeah, I think you cannot schedule joy. And joy comes also from feeling like something is serendipitous, that something magical happened and you were just at the right place at the right time.
Yes.
And I cannot tell you how many times we went out for dinner in a holiday town and we would follow the sound of live music to see where it comes from. And we discovered this little piazza that we didn't know about, and this little bar that was so full of life and love and beautiful music. Some of my best memories are chasing down live music sounds in a town I don't know, or going in a bar. I remember I was in Scotland. I was in Glasgow. I know you were born in Scotland, right?
Yeah, I was born in Edinburgh, actually. Yeah, I know Glasgow well.
Oh, was I in Edinburgh or Glasgow? Glasgow. I was in Glasgow. Edinburgh. I cannot remember, sorry. But I was there with my husband. We were walking back to the hotel after dinner. We wanted to get a drink, and we decided to just randomly go into this bar that looked a bit strange from the outside. But then we figured, okay, let's just go in. And it was a bar that was themed as a detective bar. So you would go in and there was a case that you need to open. And
oh, right. Yeah. I know those. Yeah.
Around like mysteries and Sherlock Holmes or something like that. And I thought it was so wonderful. I don't know if it was on any of the tour guide things or anything like that, but the fact that we discovered it by mistake, lodged it in our memory because it was something spontaneous and a little serendipitous. And that's kind of the magic and the joy that comes out of, just surrendering yourself to whatever may happen and enjoying it.
It's that magic of surprise and things, surprising yourself and the people around you. I've got a friend who has a travel policy where whenever he's walking around a city he doesn't know, if he sees a bunch of people queued up for something, he just joins the queue. It's just his rule. Whatever it is. And sometimes he says, sometimes it turns out it's people queuing up to pay a gas bill, right? Something like that. But still, he said, even in those instances, he sort of ends up having a conversation with the local people. They're saying, why are you queuing up here? And he said, well, I'm just here. And then, so he's met some interesting people and ended up, going up for a drink with some of them from the queue. Or other times he's, found himself getting into a really unusual, speakeasy or a dining club that you had to know about through the underground just because a few people had queued up there and stuff. So just putting yourself out there and rolling the dice, I think. And getting off the script, going off script. That's the way to go. This is the trouble with a fast life, is it's tightly scripted. Everything is planned, everything is timed out, and that just leaves so little space for the wonder and the awe and the joy of being alive. Whether you're on vacation or at home, right? It's the same thing, but especially on vacation because you actually are in control of everything then. So that's when you need to go full on with the slow, because you're in the driver's seat.
That reminds me, I wanted to ask you not about travel, but also about preparing for travel, because I feel like our lives are hectic. wanting it or not, our lives are quite busy. We were running from one thing to another, things like that. Some are more lucky and can control the pace of their lives a bit more, like people working from home like me and maybe also you.
Mhm.
But how do we get a normal person with a job, with a 9 to 5 and deliveries, and work speeds up before you take vacation because you need to deliver and hand over and blah 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 blah? How do we get from that kind of hecticness to slow down at a pace where we can enjoy our vacation?
Well, I think you've got to accept that, especially if you're coming from a very fast working life, that possibly the first day is going to be a day of transition, right? Where you're going to have withdrawal symptoms. You're going to be thinking, rather than, oh, isn't it great that I'm slowing down? You think, where's the speed? I don't know what to do with all this slowness. And I think if you go in prepared, expecting and knowing that you're going to be a bit uncomfortable, probably that first day, maybe in the second day a little bit too, then just kind of ride with it. And then you will come out the other side, because you do need slowness. Your body, you're in your body and your mind are crying out for it, but you will have that time when you're adjusting. So going in with your eyes open, knowing there will be a kind of painful adjustment at the beginning, I think is helpful. It's also useful just to make sure that you don't, well, just doing the kind of things I was saying before to avoid getting overscheduled. Don't carry over the busy, overscheduled spirit from work into vacation. Make sure you, even though you're going to be tempted to, you'll think, well, this is how I do it at work. No, stop, take some time to reflect, talk to your partner, whoever you're going on vacation with, and say, look, we want to make this slow. How can we do that? So then we start, we've got 10 days. Day one might be a little bit uncomfortable. Let's sort of ride it out. But day two, we're going to have one event and then nothing, and start playing around with the slow stuff. Make sure you're not using your phone, all those things. And I think you will get there. We all get there, right? Because slowness is something we all desperately need. It's just we're so wound up and pumped up with adrenaline that we need a bit of a transition to get there.
And if we cut the phone cold turkey, that might also make us a bit grumpy, a bit in withdrawals.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I mean, I help people with phones a lot, and I think it partly depends on the person. Some people going cold turkey does work, right? That's just what they need, but not everyone. Sometimes it works better for somebody just to have a gradual weaning off from the technology. So you could even start doing that a little bit at home before you go on vacation, right? So you may be coming home from work and spending 2 hours doom scrolling through social media. Cut that back to 40 minutes, right? And just start laying the foundations of slow in the week before you go on vacation. Because to go from a full road runner working existence to try and slow down, that adjustment day or two is going to be harder. So try at least to make some kind of slow gestures and begin embracing some slow rituals in the week before to get your slow groove on a bit.
I think that's such good advice.
Mm.
And very timely. We're in July. People are maybe heading out on vacation very, very soon. I am doing a staycation for the first half and then a vacation where we travel to Italy in the other half. But going from vacation, which is a limited time in our lives, very limited, very precious, to our whole life. I read something on your website that really got me thinking, and I wanted to wrap up with that. So there was a question there. I rephrased it a bit, and I'm gonna just read it out so I don't mess it up. So if we slow down, will life pass us by, or is it the other way around? What's the tempo giusto of living life?
Mm-hmm. So you're asking me what the tempo giusto of living life is, or will life pass us by? I mean, I suppose my answer, yeah, my answer to the question, I suppose, is finishing off the quote that you started off there, which is people do often say, well, I've read your book or I've seen your talks or I know about slowing down. I want to do it, but I can't do it, right? If I do it, life is going to pass me by. And the opposite is actually true, because life, in any definition of life, is that it's what's happening right here, right now. And the only way to make the most of it is to slow down into that moment, right? To slow down and live each moment at the tempo giusto, right? Which means you're giving each moment, each task, each person, each experience the time and attention it deserves. And once you arrive at each moment with that lens, that starting point, you're going to find the tempo giusto for you, because it's different for you than it is for me. We're all different people. We all have a different internal metronome. So I can't give you a number and say, this is how many minutes you need to spend doing that, or how fast you need to move your hands, or how many words you need to speak a minute. I mean, everybody is different, but we all have a natural sweet spot, which is when we find ourselves doing things at the tempo giusto. And when you get there, you feel it. One of the things you've noticed is you stop worrying about time. You don't have that itchy, uncomfortable, sour feeling that that stress. You feel like you're in the right place and that you have enough time. And that really is when you get to the tempo giusto. I have that feeling pretty much all the time now. I've been doing this for many years, right? I have found my tempo giusto, and people look at my life from the outside and say, that doesn't look very slow, right? Doing this, you're that, you're traveling, you're doing all these things. But it doesn't matter what they think. What matters is how it feels to me. And I never feel rushed. I just literally don't. I get a lot done. I just don't feel that awful. I used to feel it all the time, right? I had a before and an after. My before, everything was a race against the clock, and I constantly felt rushed. I literally do not feel that anymore now, because I've structured my life. I approach each moment with that spirit of thinking, okay, how can I get the most out of this moment? How can I say no to those things? Which means I'm saying a big yes to these things, right? Because you say no to the things that don't matter, you're saying a big yes to the things that do. So you do fewer things, you give those things the time and attention they deserve. And over time, you realize that the tempo giusto is inside you. You will find it. You'll just find it naturally. You'll get into that sweet spot. You don't get there overnight. Nobody finds the inner calm of the Dalai Lama in 24 hours. This takes time and learning and experience, but we can all get there, right? If I can get there as a naturally fast person, anyone can. And I am there. And it's not something I would ever want to turn the clock back on.
May I ask one last question?
Sure.
You wrote a book a children's book about slowing down childhood, or children's lives are so rushed these days, and that's not right. A reason why I started Me Time and I quit my leadership job in IT was I felt that every morning was so rushed with my daughter to get her out of the house so I can start rush to work and work. And then also the evening, I was like almost pushing her to bed so I could like either do more work or recharge. And I felt like that's not the way to live my life. And I decided to take a year of me time. That's happening right now, and it's very public, where I get to take my daughter to school without rushing her. So every day she gets there at a different time. There's no rush. I don't put meetings in the morning, so I know that there's no overlap and there's not going to be a crazy reason why I have to like shoot her out of the house. And we have 3 breakfasts, and we play, and we fight about what clothes to wear to daycare. And then we have the loveliest walk to daycare that's close by, and we pick raspberries, and we look at the flowers, and we hear the noises and the sounds. And when she gets there, even though she's sad to say goodbye from her mom, but it's been a lovely morning experience together. Instead of creating this super rushed, super efficient thing where a daycare sees your kids more than you see them yourself. And so, because I didn't read that book, do you have 1 or 2 things that we can do to slow down their childhood so they can enjoy it, so we can build memories?
Yeah, well, you've just said one of them there, which is, in order to slow down our children and give them a slow childhood, we have to start by slowing down ourselves. That's just, otherwise it's never going to be anything more than a box ticking exercise. So put your own house in order first, slow yourself down. That could mean, in your case, it was changing the way you work. In other people, it might be changing their use of technology. It might be scheduling things differently, all kinds of, whatever it is, so that you yourself reconnect with your inner tortoise. And that will allow you to show up as the parent you want to be slow. To be the slow parent, you have to slow down, right? So that's the first thing. And then once you get that going, I think you start pinpointing changes you can make in your child's life. So like we didn't talk that much about technology, but I mean, that's one of the great accelerants for young people today. Keep back screens as long as possible from them. I would not give a kid a mobile phone at least until they're 12, if possible. Ideally 16, although I know that's really difficult, or keep them off social media until they're 16. So, keep screens to a minimum. That would be number one. Number two, I think it makes sense also to have a lot of slow family rituals, because children love rituals. They like to know that things are happening over and over again and they're the same, and they're doing them with the people that they love, their parents. So, things like whether it's puzzles, or you were talking about board games earlier, or getting children involved in cooking, also getting them outside, and you picked berries to make jam. I mean, that's a wonderful way to help children slow down and connect with the deeper, slower rhythms of the world. Nature, get out into nature, get them growing even one little thing like some mint in the garden, and then letting them see it grow slowly, and then harvesting it, and then putting it into a little recipe and cooking it and tasting it and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't cost anything. That's pretty much free. It just takes time and attention and love to do. So that's another thing I would really recommend. And then it's so important for children to have enough sleep. Yeah. So I know the temptation is, to keep playing but making sure children get enough rest, because that means that when they do wake up, they've got more energy, they can be more engaged, they're going to get more out of the experience than if they're wandering around like a zombie. So try to make sure that bedtime is a relaxed, soothing moment. Bedtime stories, not speed reading Snow White, keeping it calm, keeping it loving, keeping it tranquil, helping them get off to sleep. And then, starting the morning, making sure, if you have to wake them up, depends what age your kids are. Mine used to wake up very early anyway, but I think it also helps sometimes if a child is sleeping longer, and it's just to get them up for everybody in the house to get up 5 minutes earlier, right? Or 10 minutes earlier. I remember this as a parent of young children thinking, I can't do that. I need that 5 minutes in bed, right? I'm not giving that up. But actually, you take that extra 5 minutes out of bed, and it just makes the whole morning routine so much more relaxed. You've got time, you're not rushing, you're not shouting at people to get their coat on, or where's your lunch, or where are your books, we're late. It's just easier if you've got 5 or 10 more minutes. And then you've lost those 5 or 10 minutes in bed, but the rest of your day is going to be so much more relaxed that you won't miss those minutes in bed, right? It's like a good investment of your time, so that you feel more rested, the child feels more rested, everybody feels less harried and busy and overburdened, because you've just added a little bit more time to the schedule by getting up earlier.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat about slow with me and with the followers and subscribers of Me Time. Would you like to tell me a bit about Tempo so people know to subscribe and what they can expect there?
Yeah, well, it's a fairly new Substack. I've not been in it for long, but it's called Tempo, and I write there about my two main subjects. One, of course, is slow, every aspect of it, and then my more recent subject, which is longevity, attitudes to aging, all the kind of multi-generational world that is taking shape around us in the workplace and beyond, and so on. So I kind of mix up those two topics and write about both of them. And I've got tons of video, and I do digital courses. So anything anybody could ever want to know, you'd find through my Substack, or actually I've got a link tree, which is my name, carlhonore.info. So if you go there, you'll find everything from books to courses to you name it, more than you would ever want to know about me and my work.
I think I've been there for, you might find my name, or if you have
right, yeah.
a little bit these days. And I also saw your TED Talk. Definitely check that out, guys, if you haven't. If I were to wrap this up with a conclusion to slow living or tempo giusto living, and what my publication is about, Me Time, I would say the common denominator is intention. Being more intentional about what we do with our lives, what we spend time on. Me Time is about taking back time from wasting it on working too much, apps scrolling, mindless Netflix and chilling, losing sleep and things like that, and reclaiming that time and using it for
Yeah.
something that we're really, really passionate about. Spend time with our families, spend time by ourselves, reading, developing, resting. And that's all about intention. And having that intention of, what do I want to get from this moment? Do I want to rush through it because it's a terrible thing, or do I want to stay with it? And sometimes, even, for example, grief, it's actually not recommended to speed through it, but actually be in it in whatever tempo
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
feels it happens. It's all about intention. So I hope everyone listening to this has at least drawn this as a conclusion to our conversation today. And we are all a bit more intentional about how we spend our time, fast, slow, tempo giusto, in a way that creates memories, sparks joy, makes us feel happier about our life, because that's kind of the point of it all. And with that being said, thank you so much, Carl, for joining me for the conversation. I
Thank you very
hope
much. Thank you very much.
you enjoyed it also. And hopefully in the future, when you have a new book, we can have another chat and hear more about aging with grace and health. And yeah, I love that topic too. So thank you so much for today. Thank you everyone for watching this. And I will see you at a new podcast episode of Me Time With. Bye
Bye bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.